Hello, and welcome to the Poultry Science Association's Let's Squawk About It. Hatchability is an ongoing challenge for U.S. broiler producers. The USDA in February reported average chicks hatched was just at 79%. There was a time not long ago when rates were closer to 85%, and that was the norm. Since the cause of this challenge is still unknown, producers, nutritionists, and everyone in between is throwing a variety of management practices and nutritional interventions at broiler birds in an effort to boost the number of chicks hatched per hen. Dr. Hugo Romero, executive manager and poultry technology lead for NOVUS, who has been talking a lot about this challenge recently, is joining me today to discuss how nutrition may be a part of the problem and the solution. Dr. Romero, thank you for joining me. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, your area of expertise, and what you do with NOVUS?
Thank you, Sam. Well, I am from Colombia. I used to teach the poultry nutrition and poultry courses with several universities over there. And then I got a Fulbright scholarship to do my PhD at NC State. I had the opportunity to study under Dr. Brake's lab, very interesting learning with him. Then I worked for a premise company using NIR technology, modeling, basically to support broiler integrations. And currently, I'm also served the university as an adjunct professor at the Prestige Poultry Science Department at NC State. So I'm happy to be here discussing this nice topic. I get thrilled by it. Unfortunately, we only see the hatchability numbers, but we don't see data about fertility or embryo mortality. So that's something that we need to see deeper.
Yeah, agreed. Well, like I said, we're happy to have you today and talk about this topic. Let's start by talking about how you recently presented at the previous Poultry Science Association annual meeting last year to discuss a review of vitamin recommendations. You also mentioned these recommendations during your most recent tech talk at IPPE on hatchability. So how could you comment on vitamins and other nutrients like amino acids and their impact on hatchability?
Well, some vitamins are crucial for good embryo development, and any deficiency would show that we call pathognomonic symptoms that we really see on the field. And actually, we observe that the vitamin recommendations for broiler breeders have been recently increased by one genetic company, by one vitamin producer, and this increment is about even 100 or 150%. So this is very expensive. And many of the nutritionists, they really have doubts if they should go with this expensive premix. These values are much higher than recommendations from scientific groups like Rostaño 2017, FEDNA from Spain 2018, and even the universities in the US research, they never go to these values. When one take a deeper look to the vitamin research, we also observe that many of the research has been conducted with all breeders, color breeds, and also using long storage time. So we need to look carefully at this kind of research. Just to give you an example, vitamin A has been increased to almost 16,000 units. But when you go and check the literature, the requirements are only 10,800 international units. Similarly, when we see vitamin E and vitamin C, for example, are very good antioxidants, the effects of these trials are normally confounded with the male feed intake. So that's also very important to consider. And a very nice example also for choline. We observe big difference between the choline requirements between genetic companies, but it's just because one company is recommending total choline and the other company is recommended added choline. So those things were discussed in this presentation, and yeah, we are working always to give additional data to the colleagues. Mm-hmm. About amino acids, it's very interesting also that mention that the amino acids were also increased, not as big as the vitamins. Right now, we are writing a new chapter on amino acids that is going to be published in the NOVUS Broiler Breeder book. And it's very interesting to see that most of the US research were conducted using the HMTBA molecule. We also can observe that there was a big increment in the amino acid ratios with lysine. Traditionally, lysine has been maintained around 0.56%, 0.6 at peak, and then they decrease. But there's a big increment in arginine, the arginine ratio with lysine, and we can observe that now some companies are recommending 146% versus lysine. This is much higher than the scientific literature that is only around 106 to 113. For total sulfur amino acids, that HMTBA, the product that we provide with Novus, is a source of these ones. But traditionally, we use between 85 to 90% of the lysine, digestible lysine. Now we see that some genetic companies are recommending 102. People say, well, but now we have the Rose 308 AP. But that's not really true. We observe in the literature there was a very interesting publication from Dorigan in 2017 using the deletion method, and they used the Rose AP, and they only established the requirement in 86% of the lysine. Mm-hmm. For threonine, maybe I agree more. Rostaño and Fetna, for example, they are around 75 to 77. A genetic company already had increased to 84, and now they went to 94. The paper of Dorigan set up this requirement in 80%. They mentioned that it's important for uric acid formation, that the requirement at peak of production because nitrogen retention is maximum, and also after peak for maintenance, that might put this threonine requirement at 80%. But 84 and 95 and 94 is very expensive, and I'm not sure this is going to help. Yeah. For isoleucine, the standard recommendation is about 90. However, we see that some European data from Fetna and some Dutch data only use 82 to 76. So this is very interesting for egg production, high isoleucine, but we need to be careful because that could affect pH, and this will affect hatchability. Mm-hmm. So just to mention briefly, we are working on this amino acid situation, and we will have more data after poultry science.
Yeah, excellent. Well, as we talk about vitamins and all these other nutrients, we can also talk about trace minerals. So we know that trace minerals can impact shell quality, hen health, and overall performance. But what does the research that Novus is looking at say about trace mineral nutrition and its role in broiler breeders?
Well, first of all, we have keep a look on the recommendations. We observe that the trace minerals recommendations from a genetic company show much less increments. They went, for example, in zinc from 100 to 120. From copper, they increased 60% from 10 to 16. And Novus has done extensive research and field trials using lower levels. However, our levels are only slightly lower than recommendations from scientific groups that set up these recommendations with inorganic trace minerals. And most of the recommendations are in zinc around 72, copper 12, manganese 110, and we use slightly lower levels when we use our organic trace minerals. We need to keep in mind that we do these lower recommendations because we use a very high stable product that is, this stability is conferred by 4 covalent bonds because we use 2 molecules of HMTBA bounding the trace mineral. So this protects the trace mineral from many interactions. And of course, the primary function, as you mentioned, is bone structure, eggshell quality. But also we have observed very important data in hatchability. Of course, the total number of chicks is coming from better egg production and also embryo development. We have done some trials in epigenetics, and we are gonna participate in the next poultry science with one conference. We have a symposium, and epigenetics is one of the topics. We have done something with zinc. We will review also about methyl donors, which are very important. And maybe these methyl donors might justify a little bit the increments that I mentioned in the total sulfur amino acids to go very high. In the zinc side, we have conducted trials using up to 300 ppm of zinc, and we have demonstrated that when we use this bisquylate zinc, we can only use 50 ppm, and observed higher values in albumin. We also observed that with this zinc, we can improve benefits or performance in the offspring. We have recently also a publication in a Journal of Applied Poultry Journal from Avila that he found that HMTBA trace minerals alone or in combination with the inorganic show even better or equivalent performance than a very high mineral, inorganic mineral premix, even containing 125 ppm of copper. So we can observe similar performance with lower copper levels.
Excellent. A lot of interesting stuff about on the nutrition side of things, but let's also talk about some of your experience with male broilers. So you had written a chapter in the latest book produced by Novus titled Breeder Management and Nutrition, Moving the Industry Forward. How big of a role do you think male broilers have in this overall challenge with hatchability?
Well, definitely male broiler breeder is crucial in the hatchability equation. I did my PhD actually on feeding male programs, and I had the opportunity to write this chapter with Dr. Oviedo, and we did a very thorough literature review. We normally blame the male for the fertility problems because either semen quality or the whole mating activity. I was surprised. I was visiting India last year, and I observed they use artificial insemination. So basically, they don't have this male problem. So we observe that it's not a semen quality. So we go more to the mating activity. The mating activity might be affected by overweight males or also female rejection. Female, maybe when they have feathering problems, they might reject the males. Also, in some, depending on the house layout, in some layouts, the hen tend to hide more than, for example, in the European houses with a central slated floor and the litter in the laterals, the mating activity looks higher because the females, they cannot hide from the males. We also need to keep in mind that the initial development is very important. We observe higher body weight in other regions. When we talk to colleagues and we analyze data, we see higher body weights at 4 weeks of age comparing males in the US, for example. And when the male is approached to production at 25 weeks of age, normally in the US, we observe excessive body weight, excessive fleshing, and that might cause higher maintenance requirements, and in some cases even cause testicular regression. The photoperiod is also very important. We observe that photoperiods longer than 12 to 13 hours are detrimental for male reproductive ability. Male feeding programs also would impact fertility during the late phase of production. That's why we tend to use lower crude proteins, but it's very important to increase the male feed intake. I showed when I talk about vitamins that some of the vitamin effects are confounded with male feed intake. We also have some data with our HMTBA bisquilate showing increments in testosterone and also in the semen quality.
Excellent. Yeah, this is a very interesting topic and obviously a very important topic as well. So we look forward to the research that continues to come out as well as future talks that you're planning on giving. I know you mentioned presenting at this upcoming PSA annual meeting, so we look forward to seeing you again there. But before we sign off, is there anything else that you'd like to mention on the topic or any other items that you'd like to plug before we sign off here?
Well, Sam, to me, it's important to get better data. You know, when we observe hatchability data or hatch per hen, it's not really the complete picture. So we really expect to discuss with customers and people in the industry to find out what is the real cost. And in the meantime, I want to invite the people to attend our symposium about hatchability in poultry science, and also to expect our 2 chapters in hatchability and amino acids after the poultry science meeting.
Yeah, excellent. Well, Dr. Romero, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate you stopping in and discussing this topic with us, and we look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Thank you for the invitation, Sam. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.